Hi guys, my name is Vila and I've been interviewing my dad about his 1997 Everest expedition. He went on this climb with Nova and was with guys like Ed Viesturs, David Brashears, Guy Cotter, and a few other notable climbers. Even though this was 30 years ago, I have some questions for him, so I thought I would ask them and share them on the internet. So I created this series called My Dad Climbed Everest and I Have Questions. I originally made it for TikTok, so that's the reason these videos are formatted the way they are. Basically, they're just compilations of those videos. In today's video, he gives us some advice on climbing, and here's exactly what we're talking about. His favorite mountains in Washington State, how to work up to climbing Mount Everest, how to get ready to climb a Colorado 14er if you're living in the Midwest or at sea level like he does, his favorite hikes in Boulder, Colorado, and his typical workout routine while he's in Colorado, which it's insane, and then his favorite adventure books. So enjoy.
Great question. Top three mountains in Washington State. Mount Rainier would be number one, of course. I love Rainier. It's a great climb. Anybody can do it, especially if you're working through a guide service. It's a great adventure. I like Mount Baker also, another Cascade volcanoes, but I also like Mount Shuxton, and that's a great climb. I did the Price Glacier on Mount Shuxton many years ago, I think in 1995 or 96. That was a great climb. Those are my three favorite. There's so many beautiful peaks out in the Cascades to climb. The natural progression for somebody that's climbing now, for instance, 14ers in Colorado, would be to continue doing that, continue to spend more time in the mountains. But I'd also recommend taking some mountaineering classes like on Rainier to learn the artwork of glacier travel, knots, crevasse rescue, route finding, but also how to learn how to be more efficient in the mountains, especially on snow and ice. Because there's ways to walk and climb that save energy. We do the rest step and pressure breathing, and you learn those over time, but you can learn from the right people, especially on a mountain like Rainier or Mount Adams or Mount Baker or the Grand Teton in Wyoming. The more times you can spend with really good climbers and learning their trade and how they climb and what they wear and how they train and what they eat, how they walk, and how they make decisions on a glacier, like if I'm going to go over that snow bridge, things like that. The more time you do that, the better off you're going to be, the safer you're going to be. And I always like to say I learned from other people. I observed, and I still observe from people, from their mistakes and from their successes. And you can learn a lot just watching people in the mountain, especially if you're around good climbers like guides and things like that. A good guide is going to slowly teach you mountain wisdom, and that's very important.
If you're living in the Midwest and you want to come out to Colorado and climb a 14er, how do you train for that? Well, you want to be in decent shape. I'd recommend running, and I'd recommend doing some hills, running on hills. Also carrying a pack on a hike. Try to get like 5 to 10 miles. Just being in good shape and doing some weights, upper body and lower body, legs especially. Just decent shape, it's key. But you really can't do anything in the Midwest about the altitude. And so when you fly out to Denver, you want to make sure you're not drinking alcohol. That's bad for acclimation, but you want to stay hydrated because it's really dry out here. So when you come to Denver, you want to make sure you're drinking a lot of water, some Gatorade, and maybe go on a few easier hikes like down in Boulder area before you do a 14er for a couple days before, and then go for it. You should be okay. You might have a headache and feel nauseated when you get on the top or when you're coming down, but it's probably from altitude and also the sun, and you're probably dehydrated. And just drink a lot of water on these climbs when you arrive. My favorite hikes in Boulder, I like Mount Audubon. up in the Indian Peaks Wilderness area. It's a 13,000 foot mountain. It's a pretty decent hike. I like it because there's not a lot of people in that area since it's 13,000 feet and it's a wilderness area. Pretty mixed terrain trail. You start out in a spruce and pine forest and you make your way up above tree line. It's pretty cool. And that climb takes about 6 hours round trip. If I'm doing a workout, what I call a workout hike in Indy or in Boulder with our dog, I'll climb an anemone, a trail. It's about a 4.5 mile loop. And that takes me about an hour and 10 minutes. And usually do that pretty early in the morning with the dog. And then I'll go to the gym afterwards. We're in Boulder right now. The Flatirons are behind us. I always work out here. It's a great place to work out, especially if you're into climbing and mountaineering. And so typical day for me is I'll get up and go for a gravel bike ride for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I don't look at mileage when I'm in Boulder, but I do look at the vertical that I've biked. Like today I did 2,100 vertical feet. It's a good workout for climbing. And then I'll also, every other day I'll go to the gym and do some core conditioning, abdominals, back, legs, and upper body. I also do a lot of hiking here. The hiking is wonderful for all those micro muscles in your legs. We'll go out with our dog Fern and Marta and maybe do a 4 to 6 hour hike. And those are good calorie burns and also a great way to stay in shape and get in shape for these climbs.
So these are my favorite adventure books, and one is about climbing and the other is about open ocean sailing. It's about a Frenchman that sailed around the world solo in a small sailboat, and it's a great read. It's pretty intense, but it's called The Long Way. So I highly recommend that. And it's about perseverance, it's about perfection, and a little luck. The other book I really like, which is an adventure book, but it's called The Boys of Everest. It's another Everest book, but it's about all the British climbers in the 1970s who were instrumental in climbing a lot of the very hard routes in the Himalayas, and especially on Everest. But it's a great book, and it talks about these guys and how badass they were, and a lot of these guys ended up getting killed in the Himalayas. But highly recommend this book too.